Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the noise, pull out the key insights from our sources, and, well, give you a clear path to understanding complex topics. Today, we're diving deep into something that touches so many families. Understanding learning differences, learning disabilities. If you're a parent or caregiver, you might know that feeling, that knot of worry when your child struggles in school. It can lead to confusion, frustration, maybe even feeling, well, unfairly, like you're somehow to blame.
Right, and that feeling, that whisper of, did I do something wrong? It's common, I hear it a lot, but it's a narrative we really need to correct right from the start. Our sources are crystal clear on this. Learning disabilities are not about intelligence or effort or potential. Fundamentally, they are about how the brain processes information. Think of it maybe like a unique operating system rather than a broken part. You know, their brain just works differently. Maybe doesn't quite mesh with the standard software of how we usually teach. Grasping that difference is, I think, incredibly important for everyone.
That's a really helpful way to frame it, especially for any parent listening who might be feeling that weight right now. So our mission today is to unpack this. What are learning disabilities? Why do they happen? And maybe most crucially, how can we really support these kids so they can thrive? Okay, let's dig in. So first things first. What exactly defines a learning disability? What are we actually talking about here?
Okay, so at its core, it's a neurological condition. And that's not just a label, right? It means there are real, often observable differences in how the brain develops and functions. These differences affect how someone understands information, how they remember it, or how they communicate it. This makes learning in, let's say, conventional classroom settings more challenging. A child might really struggle with reading or writing or math or even just following directions. But the key thing, and it's worth repeating, this does not mean the child isn't intelligent. Not at all. Many kids with learning disabilities are incredibly bright, imaginative, really creative. Their brains just, well, they learn differently.
That unique operating system idea really lands. It's about the how, not the if. Now, you said learning disability, and it sounds like quite a broad term, almost like an umbrella covering lots of different challenges. Can you give us some specific examples? Help us get a clearer picture of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely an umbrella term, and the landscape is pretty diverse. Our sources point to several common types.
Yeah.
For instance, dyslexia. That's probably the one most people have heard of. It's primarily about difficulties with reading, but it's much more than just flipping letters around. It's really a challenge with phonological processing. That's the ability to hear and manipulate the sounds in language. So a child might struggle connecting letters to sounds, decoding words, maybe even understanding what they just read. And it often shows up alongside other things like ADHD sometimes.
Okay, so not just seeing letters backwards, it's a deeper processing thing with sounds and language.
Precisely. Then you've got dyscalculia. This shows up as significant difficulty with numbers and math concepts. And again, it's not just being bad at math. It can affect understanding quantity, number sense, remembering math facts, even abstract stuff related to time or space. Imagine like looking at a clock and really struggling to grasp what half past actually means visually or conceptually.
That puts a different perspective on it. What else falls under that umbrella?
Well, there's dysgraphia. This affects handwriting and written expression. For a child with dysgraphia, the simple act of forming letters can be physically exhausting. But it also impacts organizing thoughts on paper, structuring sentences, writing a story that makes sense. Their mind might be racing with ideas, but getting them down clearly is just a huge hurdle.
Wow.
And finally, dyspraxia, which is often called DCD, or developmental coordination disorder. This involves difficulties with motor planning and coordination. It can affect fine motor skills. Think writing, tying shoes, or gross motor skills, like balance, catching a ball, or even just walking through a busy hallway without bumping into everything. And importantly, a child can often have more than one of these. It's rarely just one isolated thing. It's often a complex mix.
Right. So a whole range of specific challenges, each different, but all fitting under this idea of learning differently. Understanding that diversity, it naturally makes you ask, why? Why do these differences happen? And for parents, that really personal question, did I do something wrong?
And to that question, honestly, our sources give a really firm, clear no. Absolutely not. Learning disabilities aren't caused by parenting choices or anything like that. They're linked to differences in brain development. What's fascinating, actually, is how understanding the neurological basis just completely takes that parental blame off the table. Now, the exact causes, sometimes they remain unknown, even to experts. But we do know some factors. Genetics definitely plays a role. If learning disabilities run in the family, the chances are higher. Sometimes complications during pregnancy or birth, like being born very early or having a low birth weight, can contribute. But often the specific why is a mystery. The critical point is that these are biological differences. They're not choices.
Okay, so what does that really mean for how we see these kids? It definitely means it's not laziness, right? We are absolutely not talking about a child who just isn't trying. I remember reading in one source about a kid spending hours on one math problem, sweating, getting upset just to get an answer others found easy.
You've hit such an important point there.
Exactly.
It's the complete opposite of laziness. These kids often work incredibly hard, sometimes much harder than their peers, just to keep up with things that seem to come easily to others. Their effort is almost never the problem. It's usually that the tools or methods being used don't match how their brain is set up to process information. Imagine trying to read tiny print without glasses. You're trying your absolute hardest, straining, but the issue isn't effort, it's needing the right tool, right?
Yeah.
It's often like that for a child with a learning disability.
No, one area our sources kept highlighting is, well, all the misunderstandings. The myths around learning disabilities. There's just so much misinformation floating around. Let's tackle some big ones. I've definitely heard people say things like, oh, children with learning disabilities just aren't very intelligent. That must be incredibly hurtful.
It is. It's a really damaging myth, and it's just plain false. Our research makes that abundantly clear. As we've said, many children with learning disabilities have average intelligence. Some have above average intelligence. In fact, some are incredibly gifted in other areas. You see amazing creativity, great problem-solving skills. Maybe they're talented artists, musicians, athletes. People with dyslexia, for example, are often noted for strong spatial reasoning, thinking outside the box, even entrepreneurial skills. Their intelligence just shows up differently, often outside the usual academic boxes our system measures.
Okay, that's crucial. What about the idea that they'll just grow out of it? I can see how that might give parents false hope, like just waiting is the answer. And that's also false, isn't it?
Correct. Completely false. Learning disabilities are lifelong neurological conditions. They don't just vanish with age. Expecting a child to grow out of dyslexia is like, well, like expecting someone to grow out of needing glasses.
Yeah.
The underlying condition remains. But, and this is the really important part, with the right support, with targeted help, with the right strategies, kids absolutely can learn to manage their challenges effectively. They can succeed, really succeed, in school and life. It's about learning how to learn differently, not waiting for it to disappear.
That makes sense.
And linked to that, the myth that they just need to try harder, also completely misleading. Like we talked about, effort is rarely the issue. The real problem is usually that mismatched teaching methods don't fit the child's learning style. It's like asking someone with a visual impairment to see better by just squinting more fiercely. It doesn't work.
Right.
The solution isn't just more effort. It's getting them the right tools, the right strategies, the right kind of instruction tailored to them. Our sources really hammer this home. Understand the why behind the struggle to find the how for the solution.
Okay, this is really helpful. So for parents listening, maybe they're thinking about their own child seeing some struggles. What are the practical signs, the early indicators that they might notice? Let's imagine an 8-year-old, maybe named Leo. What might his parents actually see?
That's a good way to frame it. For a child like Leo, yeah, there are concrete signs parents might observe. And noticing them early is really key.
Yeah.
You might see him consistently struggling with the basics, learning letters, their sounds, numbers, maybe confusing B and add long after other kids have got it down. He might actively avoid things like reading aloud or doing homework, not because he's defiant, but because it feels incredibly hard and frustrating for him. You might notice trouble remembering instructions, especially if there are multiple steps. You have to repeat things constantly. Another common sign is difficulty with organization. Maybe his backpack is always a disaster zone, or he finds it hard to organize his thoughts for a writing assignment. And very often you'll see low confidence. Real frustration that seems specifically tied to schoolwork. These aren't just little hiccups. They're persistent patterns that seem different from his peers.
And it's not just the academic stuff either, is it? Sometimes these struggles bubble up as behavior changes. A child might act out or become really quiet and withdrawn or show a lot of anxiety specifically about school. That emotional reaction can be a huge flag.
You've absolutely hit on a critical point there, the emotional impact. It can be profound. Our sources really stress this. If we connect this to the bigger picture, yeah, their self-perception takes a massive hit. Imagine being that kid, Leo, constantly feeling like you're behind, even when you're trying so hard. he might start to internalize it, thinking he's stupid or just not as good as the other kids. This can really chip away at self-esteem, confidence, their sense of worth, sometimes leading to anxiety, even depression, or just giving up on trying. It's a heavy load for a young person.
Which is exactly why encouragement and positive reinforcement from adults, parents, teachers, everyone is just so incredibly important. It helps them see their value beyond just the school struggles, reminds them they are capable even if learning looks different for them.
Absolutely. Our research clearly shows a child's self-esteem directly impacts how well they cope and how willing they are to engage with strategies meant to help. When they feel supported, understood, valued for who they are, they're more resilient. They're more open to trying new things, and ultimately, they do better. Nurturing those islands of competence, the things they are good at, isn't just about feeling good. It actually strengthens their belief in themselves, which helps them tackle the harder stuff.
Okay, so let's pivot to the practical side. For parents recognizing some signs, or maybe they already have a diagnosis, what can they do? What are actionable steps for support at home and at school?
Right, the what now? For home support, I've got 5 key tips, all strongly backed by the research. First, celebrate strengths. Don't let everything revolve around the difficulties. Find what your child excels at. Maybe it's art, music, building things, telling amazing stories, understanding animals, whatever it is. Lean into that. Nurturing those strengths builds that self-efficacy we talked about, makes them more resilient.
That's such a great point. It's strategic, not just feel good.
Exactly. Second, break tasks down. Big assignments can feel impossible. Help them tackle things in small, manageable steps. Instead of write a report, maybe it's, okay, first let's find 3 cool facts, then let's write 1 sentence about each. It makes it less scary, more achievable. Third, use multi-sensory learning. Get more senses involved. Don't just rely on reading or listening. Let them see it, hear it, touch it, maybe even move around while learning. Use blocks for math, cooking for fractions, build models for science. Get creative. It creates more pathways in the brain for the information to stick.
Using everyday stuff, I like that.
Yeah. Fourth, establish clear routines. Predictability really helps reduce stress and anxiety. Knowing what to expect provides a stable foundation, which is especially good for kids who struggle with organization or transitions. It frees up mental energy for the learning itself. And fifth, crucially, communicate with teachers, openly, frequently. Teamwork between home and school is so important. Share what you're seeing, ask what they're seeing, work together on strategies. Consistency is key.
And I'd have to add one more thing to that list. Patience. Just tons of patience. It's a marathon, right? Not a sprint. There will be good days and tough days. Understanding it's neurological, not willful, helps find that patience.
Absolutely. Patience is fundamental. And beyond home, understanding school support is vital too. Kids with learning disabilities might qualify for accommodations.
Yeah.
These are adjustments to how they learn or are tested, not changing what they learn. Things like extra time on tests, maybe a quiet room, using technology like text-to-speech software, or getting instruction in a different way that suits their style. Parents should definitely ask about individualized education plans, IEPs, or similar support systems in their school. These are actual legal documents outlining specific goals, services, and accommodations tailored to the child.
It sounds like parents really need to be proactive here. Because navigating school systems, while our sources suggest it can sometimes feel like a real challenge.
Precisely. Advocating for your child is key. Don't be afraid to ask questions, request meetings, share evaluation results. Be an active part of creating that plan. You really are your child's most important champion in that setting.
So let's say parents have tried things at home, they're talking to the school, but the struggles are still really persistent and significant. What's the next step? When is it time for professional guidance?
Yeah, if you're seeing consistent, significant difficulties despite general support, it's definitely time to seek a professional evaluation. This usually means finding a qualified psychologist, maybe a special educator, or sometimes a speech therapist, depending on the specific concerns. They can do comprehensive testing to figure out exactly what's going on, diagnose accurately if there's a learning disability, and recommend very specific interventions. And the most important message here, I think, is that early intervention makes a huge difference, a massive difference. The sooner a learning disability is identified and the right support starts, the better equipped that child will be academically, emotionally, just coping and thriving long term. The research on that is really strong.
This whole deep dive really brings it home. A learning disability isn't some kind of dead end. It's just a different path. It changes how a child gets there, not if they can get there.
Exactly right. With the right support, that consistent encouragement we talked about, and strategies that actually fit them, children with learning disabilities absolutely can thrive. They can reach their full potential, academic, personal, social, often in ways that really surprise everyone, including themselves. It's about unlocking that potential.
So, to every parent listening right now, you are definitely not alone on this journey, and your child has incredible, unique potential just waiting to be discovered. Our sources today couldn't be clearer on that.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. And just remember, every child learns differently. And that's not just okay, it's actually a vital part of what makes them who they are.
And here's something to think about as we wrap up. Consider how focusing on your child's unique way of learning, on their inherent strength, not just the challenges, might actually unlock surprising new talents and passions you never even knew were there. What might your child discover, and what might you discover about them if you make that shift in perspective?